All right. Good afternoon, IHSA Football family. How you doing? This is now Deep Dish Football Live because my dumbass can't get Facebook Live started. Going for the games of the week on IHSA.org, and probably most likely 50% of the games are wrong because we have games that have been canceled. We have games that have been moved. We have games that are still up in the air. It's going to be one of those things we're going to have to go through. We got 5 more weeks of this, but the kids are playing football. That's all that matters. I'm excited, and I know this is for some reason your guys' favorite video. You guys like me doing this. I just don't know why. I think it's probably because I mispronounced so many school names that you guys like to hear that. So let's get started. Going on IHSA.org week from March 22nd to March 28th. I don't know why there's a March 22nd. There's probably going to be some games that I'm announced that are probably wrong. So that's my fault. And I do apologize. Again, follow Coach Big Pete and Deep Dish Football on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My email is coachbigpete@fp@gmail.com. Batavia versus St. Charles North is the Deep Dish Football game of the week. And again, for everyone that's been asking when they're going to do recruiting questionnaires, I will tweet them out at the end of this spring season. 5 more weeks, and I will start getting more into recruiting and that. Just the spring season, the kids need to focus on the game and all other stuff as well. And again, make sure I have your game film. Fill out the Deep Dish Football recruiting questionnaire on deepdishfootball.com. And follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and hopefully, Breakfast with Coach Big Pete comes back, and I have it correct on Facebook Live. It's been a tough thing. Again, new computer setup. Everything's new. So hopefully it works. All right. So let's get started. And again, half these games are probably going to be canceled. I'm not going to lie. I know some games have already dropped off the schedule. And we'll see what happens. All right. Let's go down. Shall we? Okay. Mount Hoot Seymour versus Mount Zion's always a good game. Definitely a game I'm paying attention to as well. The Big Northern starts actually this week. They couldn't start last week, which absolutely sucks for them. For me, I'm definitely taking a look at the Rockford Lutheran game and Winnebago versus Stillman Valley. That's a good, interesting game as well. Stillman Valley is a team to keep an eye out for, especially when we get into the fall. The Bloomington normal game, I believe, just got canceled. I believe it got moved, if I'm not mistaken. Peoria Notre Dame. Again, this is tough because literally half these games have gotten dropped off. For Fairfield versus Carmen White's always a good game in the Black Diamond Conference. Johnston City, nah. Mount Carmel versus Loyola Academy. That's a huge game. Hopefully that game, again, I said Nazareth and Fenwick last week. I get the news that Nazareth and Fenwick has been canceled. This week, we got Mount Carmel versus Loyola Academy. It's a big Catholic school game. Hopefully it goes through. But that is probably one of the biggest games. That Loyola defense, again, that class of 2023, 2022 team is looking great. They're going to be a deep state threat in the fall. So is Mount Carmel, Jordan Lynch, and they have another great quarterback in Rogers as their second quarterback and athlete. That's going to be a good game as Mount Carmel takes on Loyola Academy. Montini versus St. Rita. Montini, can they get it off the snide after their first loss against St. Rita? St. Rita had a great game against Loyola Academy last week. So it should be an interesting game. Providence Catholic versus Niles Notre Dame. That's always a good game, especially with Providence Catholic. Keep an eye out for the running back. I'm forgetting his name. Aaron Vaughn is definitely a player to keep an eye out for from Providence Catholic. Oh no, did I just mess up? I did not mess up. I did not want to do this. Nat, yeah, I don't know why this is your favorite video. Seriously. Julia Catholic versus Fenwick. That's going to be a good game if it's not canceled. Carmel versus St. Patrick. I'm looking a little bit at St. Patrick. They have some talented players. Carmel, to me, again, is a young developing team. I'm very interested in that game. Um, uh, uh, there are some very interesting games being played at different sites. Rochester versus Springfield. That's a good game. Derek Leonard takes on Rashad Rochelle. That Derek Leonard offense against that Springfield High School dynamic offense of Rashad Rochelle. That's probably one of the big games in the Central State 8. The Decatur Eisenhower game is canceled. They canceled their season. And I'm looking at Jacksonville and Glenbard Chatham because Jacksonville, they lost big to Rochester, but Jacksonville, they actually did pretty good against Rochester. So keep a very close eye on Jacksonville High School and Coach Mark Rounds. He's doing a wonderful job, and they have a young quarterback to keep an eye out for. I don't think he's playing on the varsity yet, but he's definitely a kid to keep an eye out for. Niles North versus Maine West. That's another game interesting. Maine West lost last week. I'm keep a very close eye on that Niles North squad. They could be something special, especially when we get into the fall season. Maine South versus Evanston is always a great game. Always a great game. Definitely a game I'm keeping an eye out for, especially when I'm going to Maine South next week. It should be a great game as Maine South takes on Glenbrook North. But Maine South versus Evanston, that's a hell of a game. Not going to do any of the Chicago games because literally I have no idea because literally everything's up and one in Chicago. Lane Tech versus Taft. That's actually a good game. That's actually a really good game. Lane Tech versus Taft. That's a really good game, actually. If the game happens, Neuqua Valley versus Naperville Central, always a good game. Keep an eye out for DeKalb versus Naperville North. Torino Tate, he is a hell of a player. I'm still very interested in Waubonsee Valley, what they got, especially with the youth movement. They had a lot of transfers. Definitely a team to keep an eye out for as well. Crystal Lake South versus Prairie Ridge, that's a good game. Huntley versus Cary Grove, that's always a good game. For me, definitely, McHenry versus Cary Grove. Burlington Central versus Huntley. I'm sorry, these high school where they're playing at is confusing as hell. I really do apologize for that. Toledo Unity versus IVC. That's another interesting game. IVC we got for the last game. That's for the Deep Dish Football Game of the Week. Piatone versus Streeter. Shout out to Piatone. They beat Herscher last week. So that's going to be an interesting game. It's Piatone. Coach Tully takes on the Streeter Bulldogs. Wilmington versus Herscher at Herscher. Can Herscher regain some magic with that tough loss last week to Piatone against a tough ranked Wilmington team? Independent schools, Mount Carmel versus Anna Jonesboro is always a good game, especially with Anna Jonesboro, a very interesting team. Plain over Morris, another good game. Woodstock High School versus Johnsburg. Johnsburg had a tough loss last week. That'll be another interesting game as well. Cumberland versus Arcola. That's another interesting game as well. Arcola, I really thought was going to, if we had the 2020 season, was going to make some moves as well. St. Francis is good, but this is a better game. Wayne St. Francis versus Wayne Academy. Wayne St. Francis beats IC, and I think Wayne Academy can give Wayne St. Francis a challenge. But Wayne St. Francis is they're looking like the world beaters that they are. And Wayne St. Francis, they're hungry for a state title. They're going to be hungry for a state title this coming fall when the fall comes up as well. Dunlap versus Washington is always a good game. Hoffman Estates versus Hoffman Conant. Not Conant. That's Conant. Yes, interesting game. Palatine versus Barrington, another interesting game. Keep an eye out for the Palatine's class, the 2022 class, as well. Libertyville versus Lake Zurich. Warren Township versus Stevenson. Some good games in Northern Suburban. Lake Forest is looking great. Lake Forest is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable team. Great running game, running attack as well. Harlem versus Freeport is always an interesting game to keep an eye out for as well. Antioch plays North Chicago actually tonight. I'm interested to see that North Chicago game. That's definitely something interesting. North Chicago, always, every year, 2 to 3 recruits that are special. It doesn't show in the win and loss record, but they always are able to bring out the best and the talented of their players. No doubt about that. Big shout out to Grays Lake North, Donahue, the quarterback. He tossed 7 touchdowns. He's looking like a something. He's class of 2022, if I'm not, or 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Still looking. Merrill Forsyth is unbelievable. I saw him for 1 quarter of their football. They are a special team. Seneca versus Clifton Central. That's an interesting game as well. Seneca was in the playoffs in 2019, so was Clifton Central. Clifton Central, a ranked team. That should be an interesting game as well. Keep an eye out for as well, too. Lamont versus Hillcrest. That's a doozy of a game. I put a little bit too much faith in the Shepherd game. They got killed. Shepherd got killed by Lamont. But Lamont versus Hillcrest is going to be a very interesting game as well. Benton versus Harrisburg. Keep an eye out for their quarterback, Glover. He again had another big game. He's breaking records every night. So keep an eye out for him at Benton High School. Oswego East versus Manuka. That's a good game as well. Yorkville versus West Aurora. Another interesting game is too. And Oswego versus Plainfield North. That whole Southwest Suburban West that's an interesting week this week to keep an eye out for as well. And Homewood Flossmoor versus Lincoln Way East. That's always a huge game. Bradley Bourbonnais versus Bolingbrook. Great testing measuring stick for Bradley Bourbonnais' talent against a very, very tough Bolingbrook team. They had a tough loss last week. That game got canceled, and that game got canceled. Princeton versus Hall is always a good game. I covered them in 2019. Keep an eye out for that game as Princeton takes on Hall High School. Yeah, not that many. Yeah, it's just the games that have been canceled are just killing me right now. Glenbard West versus York, another measuring stick for York High School against a very tough Glenbard West team. Youth movement in Glenbard West, they're going to be ready this fall to make a drive towards the state finals, no doubt about that. Galesburg had the big one. Another test is Quincy takes on Galesburg. Geneseo versus Sterling. Interesting game is there going too. Rock Island beat Moline. Rock Island's looking good as well. Non-conference, we go into the non-conference games. Phillips versus El Rabi, very interesting to see how El Rabi goes. Marion Catholic versus Crete Monee, another interesting game. Keep an eye out for Crete Monee. They have a great running attack with Chance Joseph. That's the name to keep an eye out for as well. And yeah, that's about it. That's about it for the second week of IHSA football. Interesting, very interesting. Half the games got canceled. Not half, but 1/8 of the games got canceled. It's a pain, but we have to live with it until the season ends. Should be interesting. I think we're going to get more of a better sense next week as we get into the games. But this is hopefully the last video because I'm going to do this every week in the fall. But I don't know why this is your favorite video for me to talk about games and that. Make sure you follow Coach Big Pete, Deep Dish Football on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My email is coachbigpete@fp@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much. Let's get ready for Week 2 football. And hopefully Breakfast with Coach Big Pete on Sunday at 2 p.m. And it's live on Facebook. Again, me a caveman. Me don't know how to work a computer. Thank you guys so much and have a lovely